So some of the objectives that we would like to cover throughout our presentation today include everybody being on the same page and having a universal understanding of cognition, as well as everyone being on the same page to understand the definition of mild cognitive impairments. And we would also like to define what cognitive stimulation is and show the crucial need for cognitive stimulation, as well as educating on implementing a program of cognitive stimulation within the nursing facility. We would also like to present our research that we have found through digging through other people's research in cognitive stimulation, and it's specifically with older adults with mild cognitive impairments, and it shows the changes that this treatment has been able to make. So what is cognitive stimulation? Cognitive stimulation is a conceptual method based on the idea of cognitive abilities contributing to personal accomplishment, and this goes together with psychosocial factors. And the concept has been operationalized and it is applied in different areas, so you'll see it in education, in the medical field, and it includes engaging the individual in activities that they enjoy that will aim at enhancing cognition and social functioning. And it's not necessarily in any specific manner, but it's stimulating their cognition through what they already enjoy doing, which is very occupational therapy. So let's define cognition. Cognition refers to information processing functions, as well as attention, memory, and executive functions. And executive functions can consist of different component skills such as planning, problem solving, self-monitoring, and self-awareness. And then functional cognition is very similar, but it's tying it to self-care and community skills. So it's tying the cognitive components and what they engage in every day together. So the definition of mild cognitive impairments is that it has been proposed as a clinical transition between normal age-related cognitive changes and early dementia. So this middle area is really crucial for us to get involved in, as we've seen through research that we'll present later that it can slow the progression of getting to dementia, or it can even increase cognition at this stage. It's a condition that involves a variety of cognitive deficits. It's especially in the areas of attention and executive function. And it can also show deficits in task planning, as well as problem solving, cognitive flexibility, verbal fluency, and just working memory in general. So all of this will go into a mild cognitive impairment. So this is some of the research that I found. I know it's pretty small, but all of the information on it is pretty important, and we'll be sending you guys our PowerPoint so you can see it better. But the first article was from Morrow and his associates in 2014, and this intervention focused on cognitive stimulation training for older adults with mild cognitive impairments, but specifically on executive function. So it looked at things like strategies for attention to daily tasks, verbal and visual association, so being able to match things, categorizing, problem solving, and decision making. And they did 2 sessions a week for the first 2 months, and then they did 1 session a week for the remaining 4 months. So it was a total of 6 months, and they did 60-minute sessions each time they met. And as you can see underneath, you'll see the different outcome measures, so the tools and assessments that they used to show that there actually was a change in these different areas. So they measured cognition, executive function, memory, and language. And the tools and assessments that they used for those are below. The results showed an overall increase in executive function, and it was specifically in attention shifting, so being able to go from one task to another and then back to that task, and also working memory. So that's the process of actually being able to think about what you're doing when you're in the middle of doing it, and that can translate into being able to complete activities, daily living skills. And then it actually showed a decrease in the control group that did not receive cognitive stimulation. So there was a decrease in their cognition overall when they didn't get this stimulation, so I found that very interesting. The second article was by Herrera and Associates in 2012, and they also were doing cognitive stimulation activities, and they were looking at memory and attention. So some of these activities consisted of, they did computer-based versus paper-based, and computer-based had things like recognizing pictures with and without distractions, and paper-based was organizing different food items into categories and circling letters in a newspaper. So they'd present them a newspaper and say, circle all the letters A, and they would have to look around and circle all the letters that they were assigned to. The frequency of this one was 2 times a week for 12 sessions, and they were 1-hour sessions each time they met, and they were measuring memory and attention, and all of those assessments are below. Those results showed that both groups, being computer-based and paper-based cognitive stimulation, showed an increase in episodic memory, which is the ability to remember everyday events. So things that you're doing throughout the day. So you would quiz them maybe in the afternoon and say, what did you do this morning? And they were able to recall everything that they had done in the morning, which is really important. The third article was by Buschert and his associates in 2011, and it was cognitive stimulation paper-based, and they were isolating different cognitive tasks, so breaking it down into component skills and working just on that. They met 1 time a month for 6 months, and they had, each session was 120 minutes. So on the limitations that I looked at in this article, only meeting 1 time a month seemed to very much limit them because they weren't with them as much. So it's important that I found through this research that meeting more often was helping increase cognition. And then they were measuring overall cognition as well as they tied in psychosocial and quality of life. And those assessment tools are below. Overall, the results found that there was an improvement in overall cognition.